Welcome to Unity Through Diversity. I am your host, Gina Anayana. Unity Through Diversity is a podcast where we acknowledge and celebrate individuals' unique soul gifts through each guest's personal story in order to empower and encourage you to recognize and reclaim the uniqueness in your own soul frequencies. So we, as a collective, can truly embrace unity through diversity in our life. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Unity Through Diversity. And today I have this beautiful sister. It's been a while. I have been trying to invite you on this podcast for last, I don't even know how many months.
It's been at least about 6, maybe. I don't know. Has it been that long? Since summer, at least, right? It's been at least since summer.
Yeah, actually, since last time you had me on your show.
Oh, yeah.
And then we tried to schedule it, but for some reason, you just on and off. But here is my sister, Erin Patrice, and she is such a wonderful soul. And in the last couple months, even almost less a year, I don't remember at the beginning, how did you find me? Or
I don't know how we connected, honestly. I don't remember.
Andy. Were you like Andy?
No, you know what? I actually think I found you through Amy Phoenix.
Oh, yes. That probably makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's how. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I saw you on a tag or something maybe, and I was doing what I do, and I went to research, and that's how we connected. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So the first time we did I was on your show, I would say, right? Conversation, 5 people, 5 conversations.
Yeah, 5 people, 5 conversations.
Yes.
Yep.
That was back in February.
Oh, was it that long
Yes.
ago? Wow.
Because
it was cold out.
It was like Chinese New Year. We were wearing like a red. You remember Annie came over. She was wearing all red. Because she was recording a podcast with me.
Yeah.
But then we probably back and forth, it just didn't work out. But I'm glad I'm here.
This is perfect now, right now. Yes. Perfect timing.
I feel like everything is somehow unfolded. There's so many things happening in your life or happen in your life. And I think this is perfect time for us to really share your story because, like we said, Unity Through Diversity is a platform that we allow us to tell story, to empower and encourage other people. And you actually is one of those people in the area. I have goosebumps here in the Tri-City area. Really walk the walk, not just talk about things. You are really doing the work. And I think this is a perfect season, not fall, right? You're harvesting.
Yeah.
We are harvesting.
This is that season. Yeah, I did a whole, I talk about that all the time. This is the harvest season. Yeah.
Yes, all the work you put in. So like before we dive into all your story, I want you to invite you to share like what's happening in your life, your organization became, or it's just became the, I think it happens. Okay. All right. So it's a nonprofit organization, right? Okay. And you just went to the TEDx, which when I saw it, I was like, yay, because it's been on my list for 2 years. And obviously, I should have put the application. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to put my application.
Well, and that's, now I can hear myself. I didn't hear myself earlier, so I think that wasn't all the way in. But that probably that's the beautiful part about it, though, because you seeing that is what kind of gave you that push, like, okay, I need to do it. And for me being there, I was like, yeah, I need to go ahead and do that push. So maybe we'll share the stage one day.
We will. And also, will you share, because that's like you said, there's so many people are thinking about that. However, it's last push is because they need to see somebody they know close to them actually made it happen. They're like, oh, it's actually
possible.
I can try, because something you think is so far away, but once you see people around you, they made it. You're like, oh, maybe I can do that too. So that pushed me to put application. By the way, I have not submitted application yet because I was like, I'm gonna type all the answers before I submit. So will you share with us a little bit, because I think that when this podcast release, you not only inspire like us, myself, because I try to put in, but also young kids, right? Young people. We talk about a lot to devote our time and energy to inspire and work with young generation. So we'll share the story a little bit, because we talked about a little bit before, but I'm still,
No, the energy was amazing. It was nice to be in the space. And I don't know, I think it's something too about going to a conference like that where there's no expectations. Typically if you go to a conference, if it's like a work conference or
you have some standards, right?
Well, and you know that you're kind of held accountable to bring something back to the group or learn something from it. There's an expectation there. And I think with this, it was nice to just be there, just be, right? And just a part of this group of people that were all there to just bask in that energy of wisdom and knowledge and, I don't know, just community. And it was really nice because you saw all different type of people and from different backgrounds. They even had some school groups there, which was beautiful for them to see. And what I loved about it was that with it being in Detroit, a lot of the people there that were on the stage were all from Detroit. So they got to share their stories about how they never thought they would ever be on a TEDx Talk stage, right? And now they're all there. So it was really inspiring and motivating for sure.
Share us a little bit, how did you get in? Because we talked about this application, but I think you hop on a divine timing, the train that you're meant to be on that stage at a short period of time. So I think it's gonna open the storyline of we looking back your life, now looking back. A lot of time you just at the right place with the right people.
Yeah.
With the right opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of those synchronized moments.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's really so one thing about me that, I mean, I know you know, but the thing about me is that I believe in manifesting, right? I believe in walking in spaces. So even for me, when I've had jobs that I wanted to get, I would drive past the job, right? And sit in front of the job in the parking lot. I would literally visualize myself walking through, getting coffee, saying hi to people. Like that, this is stuff that I would do by myself because I wouldn't tell people because people will think that you're a little crazy, right? Like, but I literally would, I mean, I've had jobs that I could tell you right now, the story of how I would just drive by and I would say,
tell us one. Because I think it's really anchors the energy. I understand that. But I never really see people really doing that. I do a lot of visualization, right? Do manifestation. But share us one of the jobs.
Okay, so, because I know people think I'm crazy already, but I want I want to share this. So there was a job, so where Dow is, and they added a part to it. They built that new building that was a part where all the flags are, the headquarters, and they had a company come in called Tata, which is TCS, Tata Consultancy Services out of India. Yeah. And they built a whole building, but then they had the whole like third or fourth floor. I can't remember it, some years ago. But anyway, that was a job that a lot of people did not think that I could get for whatever reason, right? And because it was a corporate job, they're like, you don't want to do that. I'm like, but I do because it would help me with, sustainability and like being able to take care of my children, blah, blah. So, it's funny. So I put in the application for the job and I would just drive by. Like I would drive down Patrick Road and I would see myself. And then I drove up the road, didn't go all the way in because of course you couldn't because it's security. But I would look through the little windows and I would literally visualize myself just walking through saying hi to people. I don't know. I didn't know what the inside looked like. I didn't know anything, but I would just visualize myself walking through and I would be acting like I'm sipping coffee. I mean, all of these things, right? Because one thing with visualization is that, and manifestation is that you have to think about like the sensory part, feeling what it smells like, what it would look like, the taste you would, like eating, whatever, drinking coffee, all that stuff is a part of manifestation. So I would visualize all that. Long story short, this is actually really cool because it sounds made up, but it really happened, right? And so I'm doing all this for a time because it took a while for them to respond back to me, almost to where I thought I wasn't going to get the job. But I really believe that it was for me. I'm a firm believer in like what's for me will find me, right? Of course. I have to be open to it, right? And so my mom's house, where I live, where I used to live, was probably about 5 or 7 minutes from here. Okay. I was leaving my mother's house, and this particular day, I got a little frustrated. Yes. Right? And I'm like, they need to call me. Like, it's time, right? It's time. And so what's so interesting, I pull out of her driveway, and I'm going home, right? Yes. I'm driving down the street. Literally, when I get down by kind of like where Coffee Chaos is, which is probably about 3 minutes from here, the phone rang. My cell phone rang, and it was them. Like, it was them. And I remember answering the phone, and I was like, hello? Because I didn't recognize the number, but something told me, answer this phone call. Yes. Answer the phone call, it was them. And HR, and they said, hey, we're looking for Erin Walker, blah, blah, blah. And we want to talk to you, to bring you in and talk about orientation, all this stuff. Yes. And I remember, and I get like kind of emotional about it because I just remember saying like they need to call me, like it needs to happen now. And literally 3 minutes later, I got the phone call. And I'm like all, cool with her on the phone. And when I hung up, I remember just crying, like all this thankfulness. So I'm like, oh, it's actually like it's happening, right?
That's
it's
very
happening.
powerful.
And got to my house and pulled out in front of the my driveway, and I just remember just being really thankful. And I say house, but it was actually an apartment at the time. And it was an apartment that we had, me and my children had gotten, because we came from a bad situation, domestic violence situation. And so I was just ready to, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but I was ready to take charge of my life, right? And just really offer them some different opportunities. And so that was a part of that stepping stool, but it all starts with the heart, right? And you have to really believe that you are worthy of it, that it is yours, and that it is meant for you. And when you walk in that, and that's what I try to, and I know I'm preaching right now, I'm not trying to, but that's what I try to tell people is that you can't wait for it to already be. You have to like literally walk as if it is. So it's stuff that you have to already start like literally believing in and walking in before it actually happens, so that when it does happen, you're ready to flow right into it. If you're not prepared for something that you believe is coming, when it comes, you can miss it, right?
Exactly.
And
or
it
you
can miss
could be not going to be missing, or part of it miss it, but also if you're not prepared, when the opportunity came, you're not ready for that. Maybe it's too much, right? Then you are like, oh yeah, I want it, but you're not preparing it. So a lot of time in our life, feel like that's like I always believe that I do my part. Universe to universe part. And the story you shared is very powerful manifestation, because I do, what I do. A lot of time I manifest a lot of things. You just like similar, but I could incorporate that part of driving by, but it's very like visual wise. So I will see it. I will feel what it feels like if I'm in that position, like TEDx. Like literally, I visualize myself. I saw the stage. I saw the clothes I'm wearing, because that's how powerful you can get. And you literally, I have to
like teleporting. It's like you put yourself there.
That's the core of manifestation. And you obviously you nailed it probably many times in your life. Is it?
Oh, I have so many stories of that. I mean, I won't share all of them today, but I mean, it literally is, to me, it's a very simple science, right? And I practice it very intentionally. And a lot of stuff I don't share because you do sound a little, it's some of the stuff is a little weird, because you have to literally, so even with the wording and saying like when I get it, like, when it comes, or when that happens, as opposed to if, right? I try not to use if. And so it's saying like, oh, I applied for this, so when I get it, because I'm already prepping for it, right? And so if I'm looking for, say for instance, I don't know, a job, I'm going to already have my clothes. I'm going to have everything. So when it does come, I'm ready. And so I already operate as if it's there. So
that's one thing. I think one of my, I forgot which teacher shared that you use present time. Like I have it. Like instead I'm going to have it. What we always say is, we say the order, I already placed the order. So it's on order. Like literally because I can share what I'm manifesting. I always want to have a Tesla. And also I thought I was joking, not joking. Like I forgot that I did place order 3 years ago, but that was Tesla truck. And so one of my friend, they heard this news. That time you put a $100 in. So I kind of know I did it, but after 2-3 years, you literally forgot when did you do that or whatsoever. I just remember that glimpse that I placed order. So when people ask me, even my girls, I was have them visualize. I was okay. So if the car is on the driveway now, when the car is drive away, what color you see? Where's the bowl? There's a big bowl, because I want to have a big bowl on the car. So the girls, to the point that they know, so believe that mommy have gonna have, or whatever this wording, but they believe that the Tesla is already ours. And when they have conversation with their friends, they're like, oh, you have Tesla. I was like, yes, it's on order. It's not delivered yet, but it's already placed order. Then later when I went to the Tesla account, I saw it. I was like, oh, actually I did place order. It is coming, is it? But that's kind of not say a joke, but that's some funny story to tell. It's like when you really believe that something is a place order, you just have to wait there. It's just wait at the right time to have open arm to receive that.
And do the work, right? And that's the
Yes.
part too, like to add, that doing that work. So I already have everything that you need in place, and that's the thing is that, and there's some things that I've actually visualized that did just come, like just came without a lot of effort. But there's some stuff that have to put in the work, right? I mean, even with getting a nonprofit.
Yes, I was going to ask you that. It seems everything just happened so fast.
It did.
But I know that you prepared that for years, right?
Yeah.
2020,
Yes. Yeah. So 2020, we kind of started things, but I stopped it. Like I just stopped because I was focused on
2020.
Yeah, 2020 is when we started.
Yes.
But then I stopped pursuing things because I was focusing on other stuff.
Yes.
Still with the business, but not necessarily the nonprofit part of it.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, okay, we got a project fund. We could just do that for a couple months. But what was interesting was that when I applied for the nonprofit, it came back so quick that even the lady I was talking to, that's an accountant, she was really shocked that it came back so quick. But she said, you know what probably happened? She said because when they look at your application, they look at everything that you have going on. They look at your websites. If you have a website, some people don't even have a website, right?
Yeah.
Or they look at basically the work that you've been doing, and they see consistently that I've been doing work for 2 years, right? I've been literally doing stuff for 2 years. Look at the website and see, a resume there. So with that said, that's part of operating in those steps of, even though that part, which is really a technicality, right? I mean, because you're already doing it. Yeah. So that part may not be there yet, but they see that, okay, she's been doing the work. So in my mind, I mean, I don't know what their process is, right? But in my mind, it was like, okay, we're going to support this, right? Because she's already been doing it.
Yeah.
And not just, kind of like have this fake, thing going on and want to kind of say, oh, we've been doing this, but they get to see consistently. And that's why I tell people, like, consistent work, like whatever you're going to do, be consistent with it. It doesn't have to be the best. Because a lot of stuff that I do, girl, I am winging it. Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out, and I don't have all this high tech stuff, but I just get started. And that's the part that I think people really fail themselves by not just getting started. They want everything to look perfect. They want everything to be, with this pretty, bow in this package. And it's like, just get started. Just start.
Yes, same thing with my podcast. It took me 2 years to really, not 2 years, actually 18 months. I had an idea 2020 after George Floyd. Yeah. So, and I didn't really put everything together until probably last year, November. So, but after that, it's the same thing, because I have when I do certain things, I already see the finished product.
Sure.
Like how I want to edit video, audio, everything, because I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
But then universal creator, however you call it, is like, hey, Gina, eventually you're going to get there, but that's 12 steps away. What is your next step? So to the point, I was, you know what? I'm not going to so fixated on the audio process, how beautiful, like intro and outro. So when I started podcast, the first episode is actually tell people that, hey, if you're looking for some podcast, very fine, or intro, outro, background music, whatever, probably this podcast is probably not gonna for you. Not say I'm not gonna do the work. Right. I'm gonna do my best because we use all the resources I have. Yeah. But the content is raw, it's there. But like those editing, to be honest, I tell everybody, like, editing is not my strength. I can do it, but I choose to not putting my 5 hours on editing. I choose my 5 hours on creating, to communicate people, to have the podcast recorded, because that's my strength, is connecting with people.
And see, I hate editing, but I had to do it because I couldn't afford to pay an editor.
Oh yeah, that's
right. So I mean, so I said, okay, well, I have to do this, right? So I'm going to just invest the time, the torturous time to do editing. I applaud people who edit, because it is not fun. It is very time consuming, and it is very tedious. So, but again, that's part of that stuff where it's like, you have to do it. You have to be the marketer. You have to, yes. And you have to just do it and just hope that, and know and believe that things will come along the way.
But that's process as well. I realized all the business I started, it's like we are the person who is started, because you are the creator. You create a new life, a new business, whatever. They're still your baby. You got to know every process, every step of that. However, after you understand every single step, some steps you can later hand it over to somebody specialized in. But at the beginning, it's like, I know that I am the person supposed to be understand inside out, upside down, right? The process of like recording, editing audio. I'm to the know, like editing audio, I can take me 10 minutes done.
Yeah.
Video part, because the data is so big.
Sure.
So that's why I use Zoom, because you can just upload it right away. So I'm doing what works best for me. But I know each part I could go a little bit deeper when time comes.
Well, and for me, it's and I'm sure it is for you too, it's a spiritual thing, right? So one thing that's so beautiful about being able to have your hands on, just close it, just like putting your hands on everything, is being able to sow that energy into it, right? So everything that I touch that's a part of the process, I'm intentional. Right?
Yes,
It's because some people who, if that's their profession, they're going to do a good job, but they don't care about it. They don't have that heart with it, right? So even, I could pay somebody to come and decorate a table, right? So when we do our live show, they can come decorate it.
Yes.
It will look very formal and beautiful.
Yeah.
But that heart part is not there.
The touch of your own energy.
Yes.
Right?
So I go in there, I have music playing by myself, and I'm in that setting, and I just set up the table, right? I visualize the people that are sitting there. They're going to get along and be respectful to each other. So all that is going into that while I'm prepping for this space, and able to just kind of speak over the space, be at one with the space, and just kind of say, hey, we want peace here. This is a place of unity, community, and for us to grow, right?
Yeah, your beauty is just, I would say, honing in this beautiful, create this beautiful environment. I do want to talk about this because we talk about nonprofit organization for the last 10 minutes. We still haven't really introduced the nonprofit organization, right?
Yeah, right.
So I'll let you go introduce your own baby.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So the Breaking Bread Village. Yeah. And so essentially what it is a space that's created to welcome all people, right? And I really, so just to tell you this, because of our last show that we just did, I'm really invested in really getting the message across on what does it mean to be in diverse spaces. And when I say all people are welcome, because I'm finding that people don't understand what that means, even though they think they do, right? I had a little pushback of one of the panelists that I had on last time, because he has what people consider extreme views, political views. And I realized that people say they want diverse spaces, but I don't know if they know what that means. And so I'm fully committed to having diverse spaces. Yeah. And what people don't understand is that I can have a panel of 6 white panelists, and it can still be diverse.
Of course.
Diversity is so much deeper than what we look like, right? In our colors and all this different stuff. Diversity is diversity of class, of environment, where you grew up, religious, political beliefs. All that stuff is what makes us unique, right? Yes. Yep. So I intentionally bring people who have these different thought processes and ideas, because that is what our world is made up of. And this particular panelist that came on, he makes up a big population. He represents a big population of the people that we have living right here.
Yes.
And so for me, I always, that conversation really challenged me to think, the people that say they want to unite the community, connect with the community, do you really want to? Because your community is not just people that think like you. Your community is made up of a lot of different people. So the only way for you to connect and help a community, you have to understand and hear from them. And that's what we're trying to do at the Breaking Bread Village. That's what we are doing at the Breaking Bread Village. So with that said, that's kind of what we do, is bring in people very intentionally. Yeah.
I see the similarity now. I mean, that's why I say this is probably the perfect time for us to do this podcast, because my podcast called Unity Through Diversity.
Sure.
And this name came from literally, I a lot of the name, business name, you find the name found you. I always believe that the things that I created or we created, whatever, they are finding the right channel. We are the channel. We are the vessel. You have this energy. That's why this name, this creation come to you. If we did not anchor the energy, this creation going to move on to the next person who is more matched for this energy. When I do the podcast, the energy probably will be very different when I do my healing work, because I understand that the name called Unity Through Diversity is such a huge name. I'm like myself, to the point that that's why I would say, hey, I have to start. However, later I'm going to have different hosts to host this podcast, like myself, right? but I also want to have young people, right? Because they reach to the audience will be different. Even though I will go to interview, the people are in high school, whatever, but not because my age, it's because I'm not living in their environment. Even though I try to go to bridge the gap, but what if we have somebody is 19, 18, they can interview people from 15 to 25. So that we will get a different story, different way to express things. That's why I have to start, but also the diversity. Like, you are very diversified. Like, also to me is we allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to open to different perspective.
Yeah, we have
like
to.
Myself, I mean, to the point that I cannot even tell myself whether I'm Chinese, American, whatever. It doesn't really matter because my background have all these layers thing, to the point that I don't even really care. Not saying I don't care. It's like I can't even just put myself into one box because I'm willing to open.
No.
And I also listen to different, it's like a diamond, right? You have different cut, different sides. And when the sun come in, if you from this side and that side, same sunlight, but you will see different ray. So who's right, who's wrong? Everybody's right.
I mean, think about. I mean, I have four children, right? Four boys, and they were all raised in the exact same household.
They're totally different.
So different.
Yes.
They see things very different. I mean, extremely differently, right? And so that's the thing, is that it's just so interesting because, like, we have to get out of these silos and these different echo chambers because it's just not healthy, right? You can't get all your information from one source. You can't be afraid to ask questions. I question everything. Yes. And I think that's healthy to question things. And then also, when it's unrealistic to think that everybody's going to think like you. It's unrealistic to think that you can force people to sway your way. I mean, think about, I even think about when, like with teachers, when I go and talk sorry, the air is really dry today. When I go to schools and I talk, I even tell the students, I'm like, your teachers are all here and they have the same goal, is to teach, right? To educate. Excuse me. They're to teach and educate. They're also different, though. They have different ideas and philosophies and different things to make them up. But their main goal is all the same.
Main intention. But they have different approaches.
Yes,
right?
Yes. So, and that's all of us, right? We can have, I always tell people that this is my kind of like my spiel, is that, all of us over the 2 years, because I believe, like, I've been doing case studies. I didn't realize I was, but I've been gathering all this information of just how we interact with each other. And the three things that I found that everybody wants is to feel safe.
Yep.
They want to be healthy, and they want to be free. Like, those are the three things that I found. I mean, there's other things, but those are the three main things that no matter who I talk to, whatever their political, whatever beliefs are, those are the three things they want. Yeah. How we get to those things is what makes us different. So for safety, for some, might be having 20 guns in their house, right? Because that makes them feel safe.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, or whatever. It makes them sleep good at night, emotionally. They feel safe, whatever that safety looks like, right? Yeah. Then you have people that believe no guns is what makes them safe, right? They would feel uncomfortable with a gun in their house. They would not be able to sleep at night with a gun in their house, but it's still safety.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we want the same things, essentially, the core of us, right? How we get there is what makes us different, and we have to be open. And because naturally, if you're not a gun person, the minute I talk about guns, our bodies tell that we're not comfortable.
Like,
yes.
I don't have a guy in my place. I probably feel very safe that I do not.
Yes, and I could tell that because the way you responded when I said 20 guns, you were like, oh, you know what I mean? But for someone that if they went into your house and said, you don't have a gun, they would think you were like, that's crazy. You go down south where my family is, people have guns all the time. It's no big deal to see guns and land all over the place. Like, why is there a gun right here in the middle of it, But that's what people feel. So my point is that we have to be careful with discarding people and dismissing people because they have a difference of what they consider their safety, their health, and their freedom looks like. So
yes, I think that the one word that came to my mind is embrace the differences. Yeah. Right. Embrace is like there's no like a right or wrong to them is very right to them. Just because you disagree, it doesn't mean they are wrong.
Well, yes, and that's the thing is that I always tell people about learning the why and the how. Why does a person feel like that? How did they get to that conclusion? Say, for instance, you have a guy that says, yeah, I want 20 guns in my house to feel safe. And you say, well, that's dumb. Why would you want 20 guns? That's crazy.
You mean to ask why?
And then you ask the question why, and then he may tell you, when he was 5, he remembered somebody breaking into his house, right?
Yeah.
Robbing, taking his stuff, or somebody ended up getting killed by this person, and they had no way to protect themselves. That was traumatizing.
That's a belief system, because now back to the healing work I do, like, because I'm working on people's belief system. So if they're 5 years older than them, they believe that if no gun, which means gonna threat their lives, they have belief system is like, God make me feel safe. So that's a belief system. But that's no right or wrong, it's just what they experience.
Sure.
So what if the other person, let's say, 6 years old, and somebody broke in, maybe in the gunshots, whatever, they have belief system is gun is dangerous, right?
Right.
So
Same
the belief system is very different than, there are so many different, like you said, if you have 5 white people, but they have different background. They, education, not say education high, low, but how they perceive the information, perceive their lives, the angle is different.
Well, you could have blue collar, right?
Yeah.
That worked, farming or something his whole life or her life, and had to really work hard in a different way. Not saying white collar people don't work hard, but I'm saying just a different, right?
Yeah.
And then you have somebody that's white collar that may have been given everything, or use more. Not that people that work hard don't use it, but what I'm trying to use is that some people use their hands more, and then some people just use, because like some of the stuff that people do on computer stuff, I wouldn't have a clue how to do. I'm not that kind of person. I'm more of a hands-on. So I want to make sure I'm saying this right, not to take away from anybody and what they do, but it's different, right? When you are raised differently,
it's just different.
It's different.
Different is a good word.
Yes.
To honor each other's where they come from. And also have this open-minded to just ask questions, be curious. Yeah. And then why? Tell me about
and
it. Make me understand.
Not make assumptions. Yeah. Yes. Because so Renee, the owner of Live Oak.
Yes.
So people could look, and her and I have had this conversation. That's why I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
People could look at her and say, "Oh, she's very privileged, right? she looks like she doesn't have to worry about anything. She's always, how she looks. She's always flawless, and she looks like, people assume that she has money, right?
Yeah.
And they assume like, oh, she's always had that. But as she shares all the time, she grew up. She didn't have that, which made her into what she is today. When I was younger, I was middle class. We lived in a nice house. My mother worked a corporate job. I could get anything I wanted to. It wasn't until I got older and got into a situation that I lived a different life, and I had to live in the projects and didn't know what I was eating from day to day. But my childhood was not like that. And people would assume that mine would have been and hers wasn't. But it's not fair to make those assumptions based on what we look like. So my point is that that's why we have to sometimes dig a little bit deeper to understand people.
That's for sure. Like when I came here, or after a couple of years I came here, when I back to China, people, they would see where you're from and assume what's going on in your life. And I was like, you guys have no idea what I'm going through right now. That was actually lowers my point. I had suicidal thoughts because I was like, the gap between how people see you versus how you really feel about it. The one thing you do mention, there are 3 things. One thing, if I would add on when in my work or when I approach other people, communication is to be seen and heard. Plus safe. Safe is for sure, like safe to share, safe to, but another part is like we kind of sometimes missing the part of really listen to this person and let them share what's on their heart with patience. And I feel like when I look back, is like that's something missing. Obviously I'm still here,
Thank you.
But that time it was really to the point is like, there's a lot of people are going through what I went through right now. Just depression, right? Why you would have this depression? Because you have different how you show up in public is one mask or face. When we are not really connecting, the true version of ourselves has a gap, because in the middle, because we don't feel safe to share, and we are afraid other people will not understand what I'm going through.
Feel free.
Yes, and be free. And literally nobody understands when I share. They're like, Gina, why would you complain? You married this person, you have 2 kids, you have a car, you have a house and everything. I was like, yeah, you're right. because whatever my emotional going through, they will not understand, because they think if you physically have all the things, material things, you emotionally supposed to be feel, happy, loving. I was like,
they are not all in the same. No.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and also I want to ask a question, because I'm really curious, because now we talk about that sometime we want to put event together. We obviously will notice that one or a few of them, they actually not saying they are not aligned, but the energy putting out there maybe a little bit, not so supporting the whole group's environments, how you direct those conversations, because it's really hard, especially people are more influential in the community, and you want to have this open conversation, talk about things, and then the energy will be different. It's like it's you and me, we are pretty locked with each other. We can kind of have more of patience. So I wouldn't like to direct information conversation, but in a group setting sometimes it's very tricky. So how did you deal with that or work with that?
So again, going back to kind of like being intentional, purposeful, really thinking about things and being just really focused on what the goal is. I try to set expectations, right? Not expectations of the conversation or where it should go, because
container, what to say? Like I always say, set a container. So like we are for this intention within this range, we can really and
I guess I don't go into that depth. I try to be more of an example. So I think that if I operate in a certain way, that people will respond a certain way, right? So if I go into them and I meet with a panelist ahead of time, one-on-one, and I don't judge them, I welcome them in, I let them know that they're safe, then they understand that is the intention, right? That's the expectation, that you too will extend that same grace to somebody else. So I don't meet with people and have this long like, don't do this, I don't do that, because we're adults, and I feel like I try to make it very clear what the goal is of what I do, and I would hope that people understand that coming in. And I think that spirit is there where people say, you know what, I'm going to, and even if a person doesn't, I really believe that even if a person doesn't necessarily feel comfortable with something, they respect me enough in our relationship to honor it. You know what I mean? Yes. Because that's what it's about. It's certain things that if I go into a space with somebody that I'm a little unsure of, because you can always tell when people first come, you have some that look very apprehensive, a little nervous, a little unsure,
because they don't know what's gonna,
and they don't know if people will respond a certain way. But I think that they trust enough because of our relationship that I got you. Like you're not going, like nobody's going to attack you here, because that's not allowed. Like we're not doing that. And so that's why it's so important to connect with people, right? And have that foundation so people feel safe.
Yeah, back to the safe.
Yeah, when people feel safe, when people don't feel like, it's something when you say to a person, you need to start doing this and you shouldn't do that. You got a wall, you got a barrier. People feel like they have to defend themselves.
Yeah, just being judged.
Being judged, right? And now I have to defend what I feel and what I believe. But if I just say, tell me what you feel.
How do you feel about it?
How do you feel about that? Please tell me. Like I'm begging you to tell me. I really want to know. Then people feel like, oh, okay, I have a freedom here. I have a freedom here, right? Yes. This is a place where I can be safe to be myself. Because so often we feel like we have to toe this line, and really, I mean, it's just not realistic with growth. Yeah.
Yes. Now let's bring back to the community.
Sure.
We were talking about community being safe, right? Being free. And share with us a little bit more. Besides Breaking Bread Village, I think you've been involved in different other, interacting with other organizations here in like Bay City. I'm from Bay City, Midland, because we think like Bay City, especially Bay City with Midland. We feel like they are very close to each other for some reason. It's like Saginaw still too, but Bay City and Midland, and somehow they're like, because I always back forth.
Well, and it's like 15 minutes apart, and people kind of go there a lot for different things, and it is this weird, complicated thing where I wish it wasn't like that with Saginaw. I wish that everybody felt like it was all one big triangle.
It's catching up. I feel like it's
I think that people are. Well, I think, and I really think that people in Midland and Bay City are being more intentional of making that connection, because it's really up to us to make that connection.
Yes.
Because we're the ones that ostracize, right? And I'm just saying that very generally as us. I'm just saying that very generally, but and this is me on my soapbox right now, but I think that people in Midland and Bay City are seeing the value in making that connection, because there is value. And so we have to be more intentional with that. But some of the organizations are the Cultural Awareness Coalition that I'm a part of. And really, I've always kind of been more of an enigma, and just kind of like just kind of appear places. I never really, that was, okay, so that's one thing about me. I never wanted to belong to anything. I've always been kind of what I call myself a wildflower, and just kind of a free person, right?
Yes.
I never wanted to be a part of anything.
Just box, right? I try to unbox it.
Well, because you know what happens is, okay, so say for instance, you say you're a part of this organization. You have to then adhere to all their creeds, right? Because when you go out into public spaces, people now recognize you as not just your individual self, but, oh, this person's a part of this. So then too, if I don't live up to what their expectation is, then I failed living up to that expectation, right? Yeah. I don't like that. I like to just kind of like I've always been kind of free, that I represent me, right? And you know, of course, that's not real, right? I mean, we represent our children, represent our families. I mean, of course, we know that we do represent things outside of ourselves, but for me, I never wanted to be put into a box ever. So like my mother, my aunts, and my cousins are all like a part of like an AKA organization, which is nothing wrong with that. I have people that are a part of the Links organization, and they're like, you know, you need to be a part of that, you know, your legacy, and you should be in there. And I've never wanted that. I've never.
Well, your legacy is wildflower. Be free.
Yes, that is who I am, and I've always been like that. Even, I mean, people that know me from high school and school, know I've always been kind of a loner, but I've also been, people know me. Yes. I just don't belong to a group.
I feel like you speak into my heart, because I see myself the same thing. And I want to go back to the Saginaw part a little bit, because I don't want people to be confused, you know, like, oh, we are talking about Midland, and also, so basically, I lived in Saginaw for 11 years.
Sure.
So Saginaw is like a home base to me, because I just moved to the Bay City last year.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying here is like, because also Saginaw is more spread out a little bit. It's much bigger than Bay City and also Midland.
Sure.
So it's I feel like it's starting to make all the connection, even in the healing, you know, community. We tend to connect with, you know, Saginaw, and also this Tri-City area is triangle. We are working with each other very, very, very closely. Somehow, because just like said, Saginaw has its own unique. We're back to this diversity again. Yeah. Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland, they are three different personality, different people. Like if you really tell me, I can describe you, because what kind of personality they are. So we are all come from different angles. So I don't want, just because I said, you know, Midland, and then that basically seems that we're casting Saginaw. No, it's a different energy and a process that we are trying to unite or connect with people in different ways. You will connect with a different way. I approach it's different way, because that's what I do. Yeah. And we do have a lot of collaboration going on with Saginaw, like the new business come up. We have meditation thing or other things going on. Actually, tomorrow we have
and I think I was talking more like in a general, not really specifically with different organizations, but I think generally sometimes different parts are not included, right? Yes. In the coming together part, for whatever reason. I won't even get into that.
I don't even know, but I feel like, you know, we been collaborating back and forth, and I feel like the next step was literally that certain point in Saginaw. I feel like it's coming. I just don't know when, how, what.
Yeah.
But
and I think that is just our personal responsibility to be intentional with creating bridges, right? So I think that a lot of people are working on that, and we have to be intentional with, for example, so I was asked to go out to CMU last Friday. Yeah. Wow, it's been a week. Wow, that's crazy. It just like it was yesterday, but last Friday to Central Michigan to speak, and also to facilitate a panel discussion. And they asked me to help bring in minority business owners. And there was a girl. I brought a guy from a realtor here in Midland, named Brandon Lewis, who's a realtor here. Yeah. But then also a young lady named Ashley that does shoes out of Saginaw.
Yeah.
And and I'm gonna be totally transparent. Somebody asked, when they looked her up and stuff, and said, "Oh, do you want her on the panel?" And I was like, "Why wouldn't I?" Was my question.
Yeah.
I knew what they were trying to get at, but I wanted them to tell me.
Yes.
I want you to I want you to speak. You stand on what you're saying, right? So I asked, "Well, why wouldn't I have her?" Oh, well, it was like this. And I said, "No, I specifically want her because I think when we talk about minority businesses, we can't just bring people that we think are polished and these don't do that, because we need to show the real life and the grind that people go through."
Yeah.
And I thought she was the perfect one to bring because she represents a part of the community.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't get somebody that will write a check for them and just start a business, or get this huge community that will just be like, "Hey, let me just give you all this and that." Some people literally start from the ground up. Yeah. Everybody does not have boots. When they tell you to pull yourself up by your boot, everybody don't have boots. So sometimes people have to go out and make things happen. And she is doing such a beautiful job at literally starting from the ground up. So I wanted to make sure that people like herself and everybody else on the panel represents the spectrum.
See that side of the business, minority business owner, right?
Yeah, because it's a lot of people that she represents, and people need to realize that some people literally
so they can relate.
yes, and understand, and then too also empathize and understand that just because you have someone write a check for you to get your business started, or somebody that will give you all the keys to the city and all the information, it's a lot of stuff that goes into this that I didn't know. I'm literally learning day by day of stuff that I made a mistake about or assume something because I didn't know, and so everybody doesn't have people that will meet you at a coffee house and sit with you for a couple hours to teach you that stuff. Everybody doesn't have that. So people are literally doing the best they can and doing well at it. And so people like that should be celebrated.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to back to this wildflower because I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That like said, it's like you are represent your own legacy.
Yeah.
And I think of people when you say this legacy, we have this previous definition or expectation when we say, "Oh, leave your legacy behind." I think you are demonstrating a new way of what is your legacy. Now let's talk about legacy. You said you have 4 boys, right?
Yeah.
So share with us a little bit of like you are demonstrate what you believe.
Yeah.
And in your household, and if you feel comfortable to share, because being different, being you, sometimes costs a lot. Sometimes people don't understand. Like when you choose to outside the box, sometimes relationship fall apart. Like a lot of relationships fall apart because people don't understand why you be a certain way. And I can speak for myself, but I think, if you feel comfortable to share being you, what it is, not say tell people what's the cost of being you, but like being your true authentic self takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of sometimes you can stand up for yourself, and I don't want to say sacrifice, but
it's a sacrifice sometimes. Yeah,
your that's your devotion. So I want if you feel comfortable, share some of your personal story of like being this authentic wildflower, which is beautiful, but it's a journey. Right?
Yeah. And you when you're in it, because it's a word that you use, and I'm trying to remember when you first started. You don't think about it being courageous. You don't think about being courageous, right? Yeah. You don't see it that way. And just to give you a little backstory, so I was adopted when I was younger, and that comes with its own insecurities, right? Because you don't know like where you belong, and you're so different, and why am I wanting to be outside dancing in the flowers when everybody else wants to like learn computers and whatever, right? Why am I like this? Why am I so different? Why does nobody else look like me? So it's all these different things that you ask yourself when you're younger. And then 2, I was always kind of rebellious. I was always rebellious, always kind of challenged things, even as a young child. And I got in trouble a lot, and see, back then, growing up in a Baptist church, I used to have to sit on what they call the mourner's bench, and that's an actual.
What is that?
Well, it's an actual bench in the front of the church where when you were bad, you had to sit there, and everybody knew you. It was like punishment.
Wow.
That was heavy as a child because you got walked down to the front and had to sit here, and everybody knew that you had messed up. And that was a era where, you know, people would have you like, you know, kind of confess you're wrong in front of everybody. And so it was a lot of stuff that, and trauma that comes from growing up that way. And then too, that was still the era where, you know, everybody knew all your business. You know, your parents would, you know, mom would tell everybody that you got in trouble or you messed up. So it was always this reminder that I was doing things wrong. Even in being myself, I got in trouble a lot in school for talking when I was supposed to be walking straight lines, and I was wanting to dance instead. And so I was always different that way, and got in trouble a lot for that. And so I started to learn, and this is not any blame against my mother or anybody else. I think they did what they knew to do, but I was being taught, right, and programmed that my authentic self was not enough, and it was actually kind of penalized, right? So then that's when I started thinking that who I wasn't good, right? So that's when you start, you know, you're looking for love and some type of validation. So when I was 15, I met someone that was 7 years older than me. Probably shouldn't have been dealing with him, but, you know, that's the thing. And so, but he gave me a lot of attention. Later, I realized that it wasn't good attention, but it was attention. And oftentimes we understand that children, because I was a child still, any attention is good attention, right? And so got with him and, you know, started having children at a young age. I had my first child when I was 17, got married when I was 18. So all this time, I never took time to really learn myself, right? Be myself. I jumped right into being a mother, a wife, and I didn't know how the hell to be a mother. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I'm learning these things, right? And hoping along the way. Mind you, it was a domestic violence situation. So then again, I was being penalized again. I'm getting emotional because I think about my kids all the time. So, no, I'm okay. I just, I don't know. It's just a weird thing because, and a lot of this stuff, I don't know if I've even talked about in this way, but I never I just now made this correlation between being penalized again for being yourself. So this was a repeat thing. So just this constant thing of like being hurt by being yourself. So that's heavy. Right. So my children were being victimized, and I was too. So it was this thing of it's funny too when I look back at pictures, I didn't even recognize myself in the picture. I always call it like Walking Dead because I didn't realize I was so dead inside. And I think by that time I was just tired, right? You get tired, but you're back to what you said about those masks. You have to continue to perform, right? You have to show up. You have to be a mother. You have to be a wife. You have to be a community person, whatever it is. So you have to, I'm so thankful for this. I've always had a core of happiness. I've always had a core of joy. So even in those hard, dark times, I still had joy. So joy was still there even when I was sad, whatever. And I just remember this is another part of the manifestation part, just to tell you how I got out of that. It was very powerful, and why I always try to treat people with kindness. I'm going to tell you why. The night that I left that situation, it was Christmas Eve. I'll never forget it because Christmas Eve, you know, a lot of stuff is like shut down. It's like a ghost town, right? And at this time it had snowed on the ground. It was cold outside. It was dark. That was, you know, when it gets dark at like 5:00. And I was prepping to go to Christmas Eve service. That was when I was still kind of in church and going to go to a Christmas Eve service with my two oldest children, getting them ready. And I knew because of the situation I was in that typically when I was going out somewhere, he would pick a fight with me. He would just kind of like get started to either try to not make me go or just, I don't know, he would just pick a fight. It was just weird. So I just would be very quiet to just get us all ready. And then I would leave because I knew once we were gone, I would enjoy myself. So my children were dressed, and I was getting ready, and I remember I had cooked something on the stove, and the way the house was set up was this door here, the kitchen sink and stuff here, and then the stove there right at the door with the back doorway. Yeah. And I remember it was a cast iron skillet on the thing, and I was cooking or whatever. And I remember he started kind of going in, and he was picking a fight, and I'm like, oh, here we go, and I'm like, okay, we gotta go. And I just remember my 2 children were at the door. My younger 2 were sitting on the couch, which you could see right through to the living room. And I remember thinking, okay, if I could just get them out, I would be out and we'll be home free. By the time I get home, he would have calmed down. And I remember he was arguing, and then he went to go pick up the cast iron skillet as if he was going to hit me with it. Yeah. And I just remember thinking at that moment, on the drawers next to me was where the knives and stuff were. And I remember thinking, like, I'm going to do something to him. Like, it's so funny. People don't understand when people say, like, how your life flashed before you in, like, seconds. That is a real thing, where I really visualized me like it was going to be one of us, right? Yeah. And instead of doing that, I just remember telling my kids to run. And we ran, and we left. And I don't know, it just was something where it was just like, okay, I need to do this. Now, mind you, the night before that night, there was a song by Kim Burrell. I will never forget it. And it talks about, it's called The Prodigal Son. And there's a part in that I kept playing in my house. He was gone, kept playing it. And it basically said, take me back to the place where I belong, like back to home, right? Yeah. I remember I was singing that song it was more of like I don't know, it wasn't even crying, I was wailing, right? It was like this cry that I kept putting out. I kept playing that song. Nobody else was there in the house. And I remember just saying, like, get me out of this. Like, at that time, I was done, right? But I didn't have the courage or the strength to leave the situation. I didn't even know how to even do that. And that night before, I just kept singing that song, I'm crying. I'm literally like, and I'm mad at God, right? I'm like, mad at God. And I'm saying, do something, right? You tell me to do this. You tell me to do this. You tell me to be this way. Get me out of this situation. Yeah. And I was really upset and like, do what you need to do because I need to get out of this. And that was the night before. And I remember, I'll never forget, because our car made this like screeching noise because it was like an old raggedy car. And I remember hearing him pull up outside. And I remember being disappointed that he was like still alive. I'm just going to be totally honest. I had never felt that way before. And that's when I knew I have to get out of this because I don't ever want to wish death or anything like that on anybody. So I'm like, okay, this is too much, right? And I remember saying, like, I don't have the courage to do it, so you need to do something. So anyway, the next day, that's when all that happened. Told my kids to run, and I remember running through the night, and it's like snow outside, and I remember hearing him yelling behind us. And later, we found out that he was like throwing stuff at us as we were leaving. But at that moment, I just was like, run. I didn't know where he was running to. We didn't have anywhere to, like, nothing. My mother and my family all lived somewhere else. Nobody else was there anymore, except for my godmother and god sisters. And we're running, and I'm knocking on people's doors, like, help me. Nobody would open their doors. And so I'll never forget, we ran across this school like yard or whatever, and there's like a kind of like a nursing home, assisted living place that was like probably about, I don't know, half a mile away or whatever. So we had ran there, and that was the only place with lights on because it was Christmas Eve. Yeah. And at the back door, we run up to the back door, and it's like just an entryway for people that live there. It's not like a main entryway or anything. Yeah. And as I ran up to the door, I will never forget this. I saw this lady, and it always gets me emotional because people don't believe in stuff like this, but I do because it's happened in my life. Yeah. She walked by, and I was like, I know her. I didn't know anybody that lived in there. I didn't know what that. I never, as many years as I lived in that community, I never paid attention to anything because it was like an older person's home. I just kind of knew people lived there. She walked by down the hallway through this door, and she saw me, and I waved. I'm gonna tell you who this lady was. So in that same lot, it's a McDonald's, community McDonald's that people always are at.
Yeah.
She used to work in there, and she was kind of like had different abilities, so people would always call her slow, which I hate to say that, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm just repeating what people used to refer to her as. And she was always a person at McDonald's that watched the tray. That was back when they had trays.
Yes.
And she didn't say much, but I would always speak to her when I would see her there. I don't even know her name, but I remember I used to always speak to her. I'm sorry.
No.
Because it's just like a reminder to be kind to people. And I would always say hi to her. I would always ask her how she was. And she really didn't have a lot of verbal responses, but she would always say, good, okay. And I would smile at her, and that would be it. We didn't ever have a long conversation because she wasn't very verbal. And but that day, she happened to be the one walking by. And I call her my angel to this day because when she saw me, she lit up. And she was so happy because she knew who I was.
Yeah.
And she was almost kind of like a child, the way she would respond in. I was like, please help me. And I remember she looked around because they weren't supposed to let people in because it was the back door. And she did like this. She said, shh. She said, come in. And to this day, it still touches me because it could have happened so differently in my life at that moment. And she let me in. And I told her, oh, thank you so much. And I gave her a hug. And she let me go up into her room. She snuck me up there and let me use the phone to call someone to come help me. And I always think about that because people always, ask why I treat people how I treat them. You never know, right? How you can impact someone else.
Yeah.
And you never know how somebody can impact you. We're all in this together, and we're all connected. And I always remember that I was able to call my god sisters. They came and picked me up and took me out that situation. And what was interesting is that I had to call the police to be able to get my other two children out. I had never called the police on him before, ever. And that day I had the courage to do it because I had to get my babies out.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, and I'm not gloating about this, it's just what happened. When they took me back to the house to pick up my children because they were going to escort, to get him out. They found out he had a warrant for his arrest that I didn't know about. So they also took him out the home. So when I prayed and cried out that night before for a way to allow us to get out, that was the way, because I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to get hurt. And so he was removed out the home for some weeks or so for me to be able to get my babies out, move out the house, and relocate to Michigan. That's what brought me here. But like I said, and I don't even know how we started on this conversation, but I do this sometimes. I start to go on tangents, but that's why I treat people how I treat people, because for one, I know what it feels like to be penalized for being yourself, and that's not cool. And then also I know the importance of treating people with kindness. It's not expensive. It's not that heavy. You could just do it, right? Just because you should, and because we don't know what people are going through. We don't know what they are going to go through. We don't know what they've gone through, right? Exactly. So it's like that's why I do what I do, and that's why it's so important for me to stay committed to that and be intentional with that. Because my thing is that if I'm not that way, how can I expect someone to be like that towards me? You know what I mean? So I have to live that example instead of preaching it and saying, you need to do this. I need to just be that, right? It has to be a lifestyle, and then hopefully people will come along the way.
Yes, thanks for sharing this part of you that I never had any, thoughts of saying, oh, we're going to get there. But I think this part is truly needed is because we all have a story, right?
Yeah.
Then the story is very powerful.
Yeah.
And once we pull through, however way we get to the other side of the tunnel. And you would realize that actually how hard for someone, because you've been there before.
Yes.
And a lot of our work, I think we are, I didn't know how similar we are until, this is our probably second and third time really have kind of conversation about our story.
Yeah.
But I realized that that's why I want to go on TEDx and TED Talk, is because I know as my story, born as a second child, as a girl, it's a lot of people do not understand what that means, but people are born this way, they know. Because I went through all this stage of things, like you went through your own hell. Like when I say own hell, it's not people putting in hair, part of that, but the other part is when people are not seeing who you are, right? You be labeled, and also inside of us, somehow we believed that we were not good enough.
Oh, it's a war,
right?
Yeah.
So it's like the hell of like I'm fighting with myself.
Yes.
To the part that I rise above, Phoenix rising. But the older version of you honor that, because without that older version of you, we would not be this version of us.
For sure.
And I think you shared the story is because I was asking the wildflower leaves a legacy, and in the hard situations. And I think this is the part now, like you said, it's not just, I'm doing this, nonprofit work, doing this, doing that. It's because you have a story back there and lead you to devote your life. Like a lot of things I do, why would I do those things? Because I understand how hard for, as minority business people, as also Asian, I'm not even U.S. citizen, right? Not saying I could have, but I chose to stay as my Chinese citizen. I have a green card here because I want to honor my ancestors, honor where my roots from. I didn't know you were being adopted by your mom, but a lot of time we could choose to honor where we come from, the root. Like my kids, they are the mixed babies. Yeah. A lot of the time I feel like I have the responsibility to carry the torches, pass on to them, to have them be proud of us. Not say you have to. It's just like, am I proud of being who I am?
It's who you are, right? Yes. And that's the part where the wildflower comes in for myself, is that so you could take two paths. You could either continue to channel that and keep that, believe what people say, or you could turn it into something positive, right? And really take ownership of it. So for me, I remember, my old pastor, Anthony Revis, I always tell, people who've heard me talk probably have heard me tell this story before, but I remember people used to always say all kind of stuff about me. It was stuff I'm like, I did that? I didn't know I did that. Okay. And I remember he was walking by me one day with his wife, and he calls me Sporty-O. That's his nickname for me. Sporty-O, come here. And I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm just walking by. He goes, he looked at me and he goes, people think you're crazy, right? And I said, yeah, they do. No, it's not probably, they do. And he said, then go be crazy. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that, because from that day forward, I really made it a point to just be my authentic self. It was something about that when he said that to me that gave me permission to give myself permission to just be who I was. And I'm like, if people think this about you, they're going to think it anyway. So why not live in that absolute truth, right? And actually walk in that. Yes. And I say, and I always loved being outside and love, plants and flowers, and it was something about wildflowers that I always just fascinated me. I'm like, they literally thrive in all different conditions, right? In different environments. And they're, by definition, not really curated or planted by humans, right? They just kind of
on their own. Yeah.
Yes. So and they thrive in such beauty and diversity in some of the oddest spots. And I said, I remember I was sitting outside one day, because I always, like I said, I love them. I love watching wildflowers on the side of the road and all kind of stuff. And I remember saying, like, I'm that. I haven't really been molded by people. I have not allowed people to make me into what they want me to be. And I thrive in any condition. Like I know that about myself, because I'm determined enough to thrive, right? I'm not going to ever lay down. So I said, wow, I am a wildflower. So I really took that being strange, weird, different, whatever the titles that people have tried to give me, I really took that and said, I'm going to make that into my own, as opposed to them having some kind of power and hold to where I feel less than, I'm going to actually say, oh, this is actually a superpower.
Yes. Yeah, take it as your strength instead of weakness.
Exactly.
And also, you think about it, like, let's just use the flowers, right? The wildflower, I grow some of this wildflower seed around in front of my house, and some of the flowers, obviously, they are more well trimmed or whatever thing. But you think about sometime the well-grown flower, they probably want to be the wildflower. And when we be the wildflower, we give other people permission, other flower permission that, hey, you can go a little bit wild, just show your beauty, right? And you don't have
free.
to be confined in this way. Go bloom.
Yes.
Bloom anytime you want to, right?
Yeah.
Some flowers, they bloom literally like around winter time, they're still blooming.
Yeah.
They are beautiful, right? It's different beauty. So I think back to, you are giving a lot of people right now in the community are all there, because obviously, your energy, that's nothing can contain our energy. Is give so many people all there this permission to be their own definition of wildflower.
Yeah, and just be yourself. Like it's a freedom in that. It's a freedom in walking in your authentic truth. And I like color. I'm loud sometimes. Yeah,
that's why your color. That's why I wear white today. I was like, I know you have very colorful. I was going to wear yellow, but I was no.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
You would look good with your yellow. You would match my glasses.
Yes.
But I when I first moved to Midland, after being here, I tried to tone myself down because I felt I felt so out of place. I'm like, everybody wears like
so
beige.
Where you moved from?
Cincinnati.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Everybody wears like very colors like beige and whites and blacks, and which is nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
But when I first moved here, my hair was fuchsia, right? So I had like fuchsia hair, and I have all this different, all this stuff, and people would just stare at me.
Are you always like this?
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, I just met you, a year. Less than a year ago. So I'm just questioning. It was like, were you just being like in the last 2 years, or you always like that?
Oh God, no. The way I am now, I have always been just a very bright, fun. I like creativity because I'm kind of a creative at heart anyway. So I've always expressed myself through my image, right? What I look like, it's kind of like the inside coming out.
Yes.
And so, but that was hard when I first moved here because it's not a lot of diversity here. And so you already stand out, and then you add on the fact that you have pink hair, and then you add on the part that you're tall, and I mean, it was just a lot of different stuff that I was like, oh my God. And people would always ask me, where are you going? I'm like, to the store. Like, I mean, this is just me, right? And they would ask like a special occasion. I'm like, this is how. And then too, it was a cultural thing too, because when I first moved here, and I would go to like a wedding or a funeral, I would dress up because that's how we would dress up. And when I first moved here, people weren't. I remember I went to one funeral and they had like flannel. Which is nothing wrong with that, but I had never seen anything like that before in my life, where people dress down for, or even going to church and stuff. So it was just a lot of cultural things that were different that I didn't feel, I guess like that I wanted to keep exerting that energy to keep living up to my culture, right? So I kind of died down a little bit because I was just tired of people asking me questions. I just wanted to just go places and just be there instead of people making this big deal, right? Of our differences, as opposed to just like saying, hey, that's just that person. So anyway, after that moment though, is when I was like, you know what? I'm going to, now mind you, before that I always wore like, I used to have big hair. I always wore big earrings. Like I've always been very expressive, but I still was not walking tall in it, if that makes sense. And some of it was a facade because I really wasn't feeling like that inside.
Yeah,
but I was.
You try to fit in.
I
did my part.
Yes.
My part of being, my hair was not like the color right now. I always had what's that called, a highlight hair. My girl's father, he's a hairdresser, so I had years of highlight. But 2 years ago, when we went through our relationship transformation, he stopped cutting my hair or doing my hair because he's upset at me, whatever. Yeah. And after a couple months, at first I was kind of upset, and later when I saw all my darker hair grow out, I was like, thanks for not doing my hair, because now I see my true color. And actually, before I tried to fit in, like I go opposite way. You try to be blonde because I'm Asian. You try to be the white, but actually it didn't work. When I look back at the pictures right now, I was like, Gina, you tried it, you did it.
And you look so beautiful.
Now when I come back, I love my dark hair.
Yeah,
you know,
look, yeah.
That's
well, it makes your eyes, it's like really accentuates your eyes and like has them stand out. Yeah.
So be yourself, right? Back to the be yourself, like, but we all went through different episodes of losing ourselves, and eventually, because you have to lose yourself to realize that what
you miss.
Exactly.
What you miss, and that's again goes back to the core of why I do what I do. Like there's a why and a how for me too. Like I know what it feels like to not have that permission or support behind you to be who you are. And I don't ever want somebody to feel like they can't be who they are. Now I get it, right? Like different settings, we kind of we shift because that's just how it is, etiquette and different stuff like that, right? Yeah. But the core of us still is who we are, and we're allowed to still be who we are. When I go and do presentations, I say, hey y'all, this is how I talk. Y'all, I'm gonna say y'all, I don't have to, change it up because this is who I am. Yeah. And even when wearing my hair wraps, I go in intentionally in different spaces with that on because if I don't normalize it for people, then they don't think it's normal. And this is normal for different cultures and different ways of life. So this is how I dress and this is how I represent myself. So unless we normalize it, people don't see that. So
that's the one thing I feel like is very important is when you get comfortable in your own skin, people will be more comfortable to receive who you are.
Have to teach you have to teach people how to treat you. Yes. You have to teach people how to love you. You have to teach people what's acceptable for you. Yes. So if I don't show that for myself, then how will they show that for me? And that was one thing that I was missing because I didn't understand that when I was 16. I didn't understand that I had to teach that. Yeah. And so I said, and again, this goes back to the work that I do is that instead of us doing like this, it was a me.
Yes.
And I remember I said that one time about even my situation. And someone said, well, it sounds like you're victim blaming the people that are going through things. I said, no. When you understand self-awareness and self-work, it's deeper than that. Of course, I'm not blaming anybody. Why would I blame anybody for being in a domestic violence relationship when I was in one? That would be kind of ludicrous, right? To blame anybody. But what I realized is that even for myself, I had to make that choice. I had to take responsibility and say, I no longer want to be treated this way. Until that happened, I didn't change it, right? So, of course, I'm not blaming anybody that's in any type of bad situation because sometimes people really don't know. At that time, I didn't know that I had to take power back. But
you did the best you could do that time because a lot of time I always say, looking back my own path of obviously, I say, well, you could blame that people. Of course, this person did something to me, said something to me, but I said, well, he didn't force me to get married, like marry him. I actually said that. So actually I take my ownership, but that's why it's later when you see those live events, it's like, let me take my share of the pie. But what that experience teach me? What is that experience really teach me to the point that what choice I'm going to make if similar situation happen, or how can you have discernment to know who is really there to care
and those
for
signs.
you.
Those
exactly.
signs. There's definitely signs.
So instead of like, no, that's the story, because like, again, when you out of the situation, now when you share the story, actually empower other people, say, hey, not saying you deserve that, but is there any way you could choose differently?
Right.
Or it's not too late, or if it's not serve you, will you courageous enough to get yourself out there, and life is not end at the moment. Life is going to continue on, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So the thing is that, it's just really interesting because people really just don't understand, unless you're in those situations, how much it takes to transform the mind, right? And the spirit and the, I just remember so many things that even with that situation that really helped me understand that I had, people could think, I don't know, like guides or people along with me during that time, because it was just certain things that happened that you can't make sense of. I mean, even so, because of the situation, even though I didn't decide to press charges against him with that thing, the state does it, right? And when you're in certain things or certain situations, the state will pick it up, especially if they feel like somebody else has another, warrant or another case. They want to put as much stuff, right? So I had to go to court to testify for that situation. I was scared. I had never done anything like that. I had never told my mother didn't even know I was going through this stuff. So, I was scared to death to tell a judge or, in front of a courtroom. And I'll never forget the night before I had to go to court because, so long story short, after that all happened, my mother and my uncle came to Cincinnati to pick up my children for me and bring them here to get them out the situation so that I could work on the house and get all our stuff together and have that moment. And then I had to go to court, and so they came and got my kids, and my kids were actually in Michigan for Christmas and New Year's while I was back there. And the night before I was going to court, I was so nervous because I had never done anything like that before. I had never even gone to court for a traffic thing. Like, I had never done anything like that, right? And that night, so the way my godmother's, God rest her soul, the way her house was designed is that they had like an attic type bedroom up there, and that was the bed I was sleeping on. I'll never forget, it was one of those small little attic bed windows, and so the bed was here and the window was here, and there was a street light that shone in there, so it was a little light that would come in from there, and I will never forget this. I mean, I could see it just vividly as it was then, and this was almost 20 years ago. Something woke me up because I was so nervous that night. I couldn't really sleep all the way, but something woke me up, and I remember it was a little nightstand sitting next to the bed, and it was this angelic being that was sitting on the nightstand. I mean, it was just as clear as can be, almost like a child, like sitting kind of like, you know how they have like those gargoyles on buildings, how they sit kind of perched?
Yes.
That's how it was sitting on this nightstand. And I remember the light was brighter than it wasn't just a street light. It was really bright. And I remember it saying to me, don't worry, don't fear. And that was it. And I remember this calmness came over me. I will never forget that because it's funny because when you think back about something, you're like, did that really happen? Or was that like, and I know it happened, and I just remember that it gave me a peace going into that because I felt very alone and very, because my mother and stuff weren't there, and that next day was hard because when I was going down the hallway to the courtroom, his mother had passed, and she was upset that I was doing that, and some other people that knew him had passed, and then I'll never forget, I'm in the hallway and they brought him out off the elevator, and he had shackles on and the suit, and that was hard for me because I'm not a person that I don't ever want anybody to be like incarcerated and all that stuff. So that was really heavy, and then I felt a responsibility in that, but I knew that I had I had to do that in that moment, and that was really hard at that age and time, and but with having that guy that came and that visitor that came, it was really comforting because I didn't feel alone in that moment. But I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff and a lot of private moments where I know spiritual encounters have taken place, and so that's why. Like, people look at stuff and they think like it's arrogance or it's this, that, and the other. People don't understand that I've been through stuff, and I know for a fact that I have purpose, and that I'm destined to do certain things, and that I'm on a journey that I know that I'm called to do. So it's not arrogance; it's being sure that I have this mission to do, and I can't allow anybody to derail that or get me off that mission because it's purposed.
Well, I think that's perfectly said and perfectly shared the story. I think I really, really want to thank you for everything you shared today and with our audience. And like it's just like a wave ripple effect that I have no idea how many people's life you're gonna empower, inspire, and change, because like I said, we have no idea what we did, what we said, and that's why at the beginning we set this intention to allow your guides, angels and archangels, whatever I say, to deliver the message to those people who needed these messages in their life, right? Because you had somebody support you, angelic realm or in human realm. So I think we can wrap up right here because everything is just so, I feel like so perfectly your story, everything. I would say let's keep give yourself permission, and then give other people permission to allow this wildflower. Everybody have definition of their own wildflower.
Sure.
Even the rose, whatever, they have thorn, right? Like other roses will be different. Like just be your own kind and shine that light, be authentic. We have this permission. We have this is our birthright to be free.
Yes.
To feel safe, to feel, be yourself. This is our birthright. Right, so let's just continue doing our own work and shine our own light, and allow each other unity through diversity, diversified society, and it brings us unity by acknowledge each other's uniqueness and differences. All right, thank you, sister.
Thank you.
It's been such a beautiful day.
No, this is great. I love sharing, and it's interesting just in wrapping up that sometimes people see tears and they think that it's like pain. It's actually joy. Like it's a I don't know. It's like a feeling that comes over me of this freedom, and it moves me. So when you think back and you say, wow, you're really proud of yourself for where you've come from. And that you also can still visualize how you can also bring some people along the way.
Yes, I feel like a lot of time for what I went through, I only can speak for myself. I actually am proud of a different version of me that she did the best to pull through to get me where I'm at right now. So I really have gratitude for a different version of me. Even the version of me get myself into some situations probably did not do very good, but that's the lesson, because I meant to learn those lessons, because now all the work I'm doing right now, I was like every single those events actually they have some meaning underneath that, and that's why I thank this version of me, and I also ask their forgiveness, because sometimes we judge ourselves, like judge so much, and I was like, oh shit, how dare you, like why you could be more smarter or whatever it is.
We learn that judgment. We learn it. We learn to do that, and people teach us that because they do it to us. So yes. But thank you so much for the time. I appreciate this time together. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I would like you to share how people find you, and also is there any upcoming event in the community? So that's.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have another live show coming up January 24th. 23rd,
something like that.
I think it's 24th. I don't have it in front of me, but and it's going to be at the Dow Library at 6:30, and we're going to do another live show, and the topic is actually going to be a part of a 6-show series that we'll be doing throughout the year. And that first show is going to be about societal expectations. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about us wildflowers and how we all get kind of put into these boxes. But anyway, that's what's going on, and people can find the Breaking Bread Village on Facebook and on Instagram and YouTube. So
all right, so thank you, sister. Thank you, Erin.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks for having me at your mom's place.
Oh,
because I didn't see your mom.
Yes.
And thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Unity Through Diversity. And you can find us on major podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and Facebook, all called Unity Through Diversity. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Unity Through Diversity. I will see you in next episode coming soon. Take care, and I love you.